came from. Are we live? Okay.
You can still talk about that. We take a few minutes. Yeah.
Just don't say anything too
I don't know if you've
controversial.
watched. I don't know if you
Well,
watched the start of some of these shows, but we take a couple minutes to tweet it the links.
Technically, now that we are live and people could be watching us,
Yes.
this book doesn't come out for another 7 days, so I technically can't say anything about it.
Yes. So we end that discussion and go to something else.
Yeah.
But
I gotta say, before we even get into this, watching Superman and Lois did make me miss this show pretty dang hard. Not gonna lie.
I don't know if we'll talk about it too much, but did you guys stay afterward and watch the making of?
Yes, I did, and
No,
I'm very
okay.
upset
I
about
didn't.
a big portion, a certain portion of it.
Oh yeah. We were talking at that point, Chris. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know my feelings. They're going to be Travis's feelings too.
I got a feeling. Did I tell you, Chris, about my one gripe?
No, not yet. Because all you asked was
I was discussing it.
All you asked was my first hot take on it. So
I was discussing it with Brent. That's why because he watched it earlier. I think he watched it last night. But I asked him for his thoughts. But I figured he wasn't going to watch it after listening to fans. He might not watch for a couple of days. So I was just curious, and he did watch it and had some similar thoughts, especially when I pointed out the point to talk to you guys about. He kind of found it odd as well after we discussed it. Give me one more second here, and then gotta remember Greg's catchphrase, or start the show. We're on a different day. Everything's thrown off here.
Yeah, don't forget to put it in the group chat.
Okay, that was right. Got it.
See, this time I'm crossing multiverses. And technically Clay is too.
Well, no, if we're really going to do up the math, sir, you've had the most guest appearances of anyone. You've done.
I wasn't talking about most. I'm just saying I'm crossing. This week I'm crossing.
No one's going to pull it off like Scott did. I thought that was. I was actually laughing pretty hard at that. When
we kept that very close to our vest about who was coming.
That was fun. That was really fun.
Well, we've got a big announcement for next week. So.
Oh snap! I'm gonna make an appearance. Darn it! I already.
Oh, it has nothing to do with guest appearance. It's a big announcement about the show. So.
I guess I'll rock it off with Greg's.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tune. You're gonna have to turn. We're starting.
You go.
I was gonna say. I will tease that. I'm
glad it didn't start actually because it didn't start recording. So that's.
Yeah, you definitely want to do that. But yeah, we got. You're gonna want to tune in live for Marvel Alliance. It's a pretty awesome. It's a pretty awe-striking announcement.
Did I not give you times? Oh, that's kind of fiddlesticky. Figured he would have a clock there showing, like, for recording time.
Oh, I've never done. I never done a recording yet. I have yet to do that. Travis has got to teach me.
Okay. All right. Well, here we are, chapter 37 of DC Alliance podcast. No, this isn't Greg, so this is Travis. I'm handling the hosting duties here. Greg has no internet. He will be back up and running tomorrow evening, so we will get superhero discussions out to you for Friday. But we have a lot of stuff tonight, especially the Superman and Lois pilot, and I'm joined by two people from the network, from Marvel Alliance, Chris Balga, and from Ranger Alliance, Clay. Guys, how you doing? Chris, how are you?
Good. I'm happy to jump through the portal and come over to the DC side for this week.
Yeah, this is my second week here, so I think it's. I don't want to say it's official yet, but Greg, you just got to get your internet, together. Maybe it may have to be,
Well, we try. In Greg's defense, we tried to test run today earlier on his phone, but the audio quality was kind of. So we were like, Chris volunteered. He was like, I can give you an hour, out of my time, which is really thankful. And you jumped in as well. So we got to good group here for discussion. But before I even get into the show stuff, hearing Chris talk beforehand, I have a confession, Chris.
Oh, God.
Because we play a little cat and mouse game sometimes when you have guests on Marvel Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
You always say, tune in, you know I'm going to be there, and it kills me not to know.
Yep.
I knew about your guest host a solid week in advance easily.
Who ratted?
That was my one. That was my one thing I asked for. One request for us to switch our times to Snell. I was like, I need to know who the guest is.
Ooh.
And he told me, and I didn't even say anything to Chris. I was like, I can't say anything to him. I was like, zip. And he was like, don't say it. I never even tried to throw a little shade at Chris that I knew. And it was so hard not to. So hard, Chris. I was like, oh, why did he spell? I was like, nope, I can't. But I just got to actually tell you because it was an amazing episode. I was in the chat the entire time. But
well, like I said, it's going to be fun for this coming Monday.
I have no idea about this one. That's
nobody
for sure.
has any idea about this one.
I have no bargaining chip. I have no bargaining chip for this one, so
you might have to go to Dormammu to bargain for this one.
I've come to bargain. Okay, before we get into the awesomeness, I'm going to do the network plug as quick as possible. We're part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network with 10 podcasts, 7 days a week. And Mondays is World's Finest True Believers with Chris. And Tuesdays is DC Alliance with myself and Greg. And Wednesdays is Marvel Alliance with Chris and Travis Snell. And Thursdays is Rotating with Ranger Alliance with Clay and rotating guests. You have Slice of Film with Katie and rotating guests. And Star Wars Alliance with Katie and Nathan. You also have on Fridays Superhero Discussions. On Saturdays is Super Civil Servants. On Saturdays and Sundays is Weird Science, Comics, DC, and Marvel Roundup. And on Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Marvel Alliance and DC Alliance both go on Geekverse YouTube channel live. And Friday night, Super Civil Servants goes live on Super Civil Servants YouTube channel. And that's the full network plug. We also have a Patreon, a $1 tier and a $5 tier. $1 tier is basically a tip jar. We're running out of batarangs and you're just helping us refill it. And the $5 tier is where you get your goodies, you get your ad-free episodes, you get your early access to episodes. You also get your Patreon exclusives, like the great last Ronin Part 2 discussion myself, Clay, and Joe had this past weekend. That was really fun. I can't wait for the third issue, and I'm afraid it's going to be delayed. It was extended, got an extra couple issues on the run. So
right now it's scheduled
to our thoughts for that.
Scheduled for May right now, according to ComiXology.
Yeah, Eastman does not make me confident.
We tried to be very what's the word? I guess overconfident,
optimistic, maybe,
and optimistic in his ability to be on time next issue. So we like I said, high hopes.
Yes, you guys did a good job. I very much enjoyed it, and I read number 1 and number 2, so it's nice to kind of, instead of going in not reading the issue like the first time, now reading the issue and ready for it. So I enjoyed your takes.
Very nice.
Such a blast from the past, and we'll get the 3 other parts out to you when they've dropped. That's about it for the network. So, boys, do you want to get into some DC news before we cover that pilot that we got?
We had a pilot?
We got a pilot. We got a DC TV pilot.
I know, finally.
Not Ryan Wilder.
Nothing wrong with that. I enjoyed it.
I really shouldn't say that because I mean I'm recording every single Batwoman episode. I just haven't found the time to watch it. And unfortunately, and of course I'll, conduct my own opinion on it later when I finally get to it. But there's just so much of not necessarily negativity, but the fact that nobody's talking about it, I think, is even more telling of people are just not interested, unfortunately. But like I said, I still want to watch it. I still want to form my own opinion on it for sure.
I'd give it a chance. Yes. I've enjoyed it. I've definitely it was not what I'd wanted, but what they've done with it has been good. So
yeah, they were put in a tough position there as well. I was going to let them give them a little while anyway, but get to that. I want to talk about the Arrowverse. I can't call it the Arrowverse. The DCCW as a whole. When we get to this this pilot. But before that, we had some Supergirl casting news that I didn't have any idea this was happening. I had no idea she was part of the movie she was added to. It kind of blew my mind. She was cast in the upcoming Flash film. What was awesome was how it was done with the director Annie Muschietti doing it on IG Live, and her reaction was that's the kind of thing we need in the world today. But I didn't even have any idea this. Did either of you hear or see any rumors of this beforehand, or did this blow you guys away like it did me?
I think we've heard like the rumblings back and forth, and we've gone through like, oh, they're giving up like Superman for focusing on Supergirl, and then they've gone back and said, no, not really, but we wanted to use something with Supergirl. So I think we've heard Supergirl for a while, but I definitely didn't think it was going to be in Flashpoint. I think it's great. I think it's really a good way to introduce it doesn't have to be our, whatever we're calling this Earth for the Snyderverse, or whatever we're calling like Snyderverse right next to it, since it's wherever we're putting this Flash movie in whatever universe. But whatever it is, just that video, just
it was great.
That was the best thing Muschietti could have done. If I'm saying his last name right, am I saying that right?
I took a leap of faith too. I had no idea.
I've
heard it many times.
I remember like correcting people after Fandom, but I have completely forgotten the pronunciation since Fandom, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, Muschietti, I loved how he handled it. You just her reaction and just genuine. That's what I want to see from someone taking a part that they know how important it is, and you see the genuine desire for it. It reminds me of what Andrew Garfield did when he came to Comic-Con dressed as Spider-Man. Just that kind of stuff. Because I said, okay, I'm sorry, I don't watch The Young and the Restless. Sorry, just not my tempo, not my thing. But from what I understand and what I've heard other people say, and just seeing her reaction, I'm sold. Go for it. I'm with you. I'm with you all the way.
Yeah, as somebody who very much as a kid tried to stay home as much as possible, faking my sickness or getting sick at lunch, or finding out if you get sick at school, you go home. My grandmother punished me by saying, "Hey, if you're gonna stay home, you're gonna sit with me and watch my telenovelas and like all my soaps and all of that stuff." So Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, that's all my jam, to be completely honest. I can go to my grandmother's and she'll be watching something and I can immediately start asking her questions and I somewhat understand what's going on. It's absolutely crazy. But seeing that video almost brought me to tears. I know a mutual friend of ours, Lisa, said it almost brought her to tears as well. There's a moment in there where they get to share a moment where they're both speaking Spanish.
Yes.
And it's just a very intimate moment. Because she even asks, like, "Hey, is it okay if I freak out real quick?" And that's one of the most genuine things you can do, because as you have seen, if anybody goes into her IMDb or her wiki or whatever, she doesn't have credits to her name. She's she is a TV star. And usually people who star in soaps star in more soaps for the longest of times. Days of Our Lives has been around since I was a child. And some of the same actors are still on that show. It is absolutely insane. So to know that she went from that to now a multi-million-dollar budget project is amazing. It got me really excited. I can actually go to my grandmother and be like, "Hey, this person on your show? She's gonna be in a really big movie." And she won't care if it's the Flash, but she'll be able to see one of her characters in a high budget movie, a high action movie. I know a lot of people are concerned about some really silly stuff with her right now as well. You know, oh, is she gonna be blonde? Is she gonna be a brunette?
Who
Is
cares?
is she in the Zack Snyder universe, or is she in this new kind of DCEU that we're all trying to create? And it doesn't matter.
Oh.
She's in the movie. That's all that matters. And I am so happy that this happened, because I know something else that we're going to talk about, and we'll eventually get to it, is the Blue Beetle news. Like, I got two Latinx representation coming at me. Like, that's what I like. We've been talking about it in our chats. Like,
Yeah.
I have been wanting a Latin American or just Latinx, representation, because I haven't been getting it at all, like anywhere. And to see one of the biggest female superheroes now represented with a Latinx actress is amazing.
Mhm. And this is the progress that, it's a step. It's a step. It's because, again, as many people in our chat have said before, you cast the person, and I believe that's exactly what it was. She blew away out of 450 plus other actresses for this part. That says something, that she's bringing something special to the table. And it is awesome that they can, and WB can look past the idea of who cares, if she doesn't have blonde hair. Who cares at that point? But the fact that we can look past that and then also celebrate it at the same time, like you said, a Latinx actress gets to play one of the most famous, female superheroes in the DC comics. That is huge, and I love that we can celebrate that and also say, hey, we're making a step in the right direction. We're looking at diversity because they bring the talented sense. We don't need a white blonde to portray Supergirl, because it's a part. It could be anything, and anyone can do it. Anyone can wear the mask.
It's continued progress, Chris. Just like, for example, Aquaman. Aquaman always had to be that swarmy, like blonde hair, blue eyes, like kind of like surfer dude, little bit. But look what they did in breaking the mold with what they did with Jason Momoa. I know in Justice League they had to go bro and my man and all that stuff a lot, but we probably won't get that kind of stuff in like we won't. Uh, but yeah, this is a step in the right direction. Sasha Calle is her name. I didn't include that. Props to me. That's awesome.
We totally forgot we buried the lead on.
I know we were so excited
I
about
read
the
everything but her
actual.
name.
Yeah, Sasha Kaye is she. I can't get over her like confusion of the conversation as well.
Yeah.
Of just like, hey, can you fly? And she's like in a plane? Like, you want me to go over there? Like, is there is there a reason for me needing to fly? And when he brings the suit up and she like her eyes start to widen, she starts to like it starts to click in her head, and it's like, oh, okay. Um, I didn't know, and of course it's a big budget movie, so I should have been in that ballpark. But 400 people auditioned for that thing.
I can believe it. I mean, again, you put out that call and they see what this can do for careers.
Yeah.
If it's pulled off right, and even if the movie, quote unquote, is not good, we've seen actors and actresses say the movie wasn't great, but that actor or that actress really stole the show on that one. So they know exactly what that can do. And just what Muschietti, he had this whole plan in his head saying, oh, I'm going to surprise her and then like that. And I wonder in his head to say, did he see how this was going to go down in that way? And then, but just give me the suit. And that's Cavill's suit. That is Cavill's suit. That's even more awesome at that point, because he could have grabbed the Reeves suit. They could have done something else like that. He grabbed Cavill's suit. That's even that is also very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people that say they're forgetting Snyder's DCU, like, come on now. The majority of the like Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Flash, they're all the casting from that universe, we'll call it for now. And when Clay was talking about the complaints, I want to rip my face off because I've seen them as well, and I've insta-block every one of those stupid complaints because it infuriates me because that's not what I worry about. Is she a good actress? Can
Well, and
she like make me believe her as the part? That's all I care about. I don't care about if she has blonde hair. That's the same thing as Gal Gadot's chest isn't big enough to be Wonder
Oh, for
Woman. Like,
the
crying out
what are we
one
loud.
talking
the
about
one
here?
thing that bothers me about it though is don't even if you want to go comic book accurate, okay? Let's go comic book accurate as far as what a Kryptonian in is. Kryptonians are humanoid aliens. Humanoid aliens. If you look at humans, we're not all white. That would mean that Kryptonians are not going to be all white. And
Shocking.
yeah, and in the House of L, freaking not the comic, but uh but the House of L.
Krypton.
Talk about the characters. Kara has blonde hair. Clark has brown hair. People didn't complain about that.
If I'm not
What were
mistaken,
what were the genes were for that? You know, it doesn't matter. So for Kara to come in and have a darker skin tone and maybe a heavier accent of some kind, that's okay
yeah.
because she is a Kryptonian that may be from a different part of Krypton.
And if I'm not mistaken, even the show Krypton wasn't all white and blonde hair.
Exactly.
They
No,
had
that's what I was.
yeah. So
That's
sorry.
like I know it's just like House of Zod, House of
Yeah.
Zod,
Yeah.
because that like I was shocked when I seen that 1st.
Mhm.
Not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting it, and that became some of those characters became my favorite characters of the show.
It-
And I didn't care about skin color or orientation or anything like that. All I cared about was the performances, and they made me like feel for the character. That's all
Mhm.
I really care about. I want to see more representation. I'm just talking about for complaints.
Mhm.
That will be my only complaints. Well, do I connect with you through the story?
Yeah.
Not is your hair blonde or uh, is your chest big enough or stuff like that. The silly things that I just can't believe people complain about it. But I mean, just check Twitter, I
And
guess,
and
for
and
anything
here's
like
here's
that.
another perfect example about the aesthetic doesn't quite matter when you have the perfect cast. And I can't say perfect cast because we still don't know his character too much, and that's why we're getting this movie. But there were so many people that complained about Ezra Miller's costume. So many people. But we still got him as the Flash. And when you saw him do things like the Flash, everybody freaked out and they're like, "Oh my god, this is so cool." They forgot about that Flash costume,
But
you know?
it yeah, and I've said over and over again, and I'll continue to say it, that's what makes comics awesome. You can have different interpretations. You can have different ways of writing these characters, putting these characters, if you're having entirely different. DC is famous for Elseworlds, you know,
Yeah.
and this is, the what Flashpoint is one of the quintessential, not necessarily Elseworld story, but Elseworlds like because of what occurs in Elseworlds, and obviously they're going to do a lot of differences, but it could be Flashpoint in name only and just take the concept of it. However, I welcome the idea of a different take on Supergirl. We've seen it, and we've seen, Benoist come out and say, "Hey, awesome job, Vandervoot. Hey, guess what? Welcome to the club. Welcome to the fandom." And the people that are going off on saying, "Oh, why Cavill did it?" Again, Cavill's under a different purview of contracts and things like that. He's got to play a whole different ball game at that point of why he hasn't said anything. Please, let's not throw Mr. Cavill under the bus and say that he doesn't care. Guaranteed at that point, if he wanted to and didn't want to have everyone jumping, "Oh, he's approved. That means we're getting another Superman." He can't, he knows and is probably kicking. He would love to do that. Again, I don't know Henry Cavill, but I'm just saying that what he has put out there says to me that he'd be the first person to jump at it if he could do it without so many people reading into that tweet or that
Yeah.
Instagram comment.
Plus, rumors have it he's going to be having to shave his head soon. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuart Little in the chat pointed out that some of Zod's people in Man of Steel were persons of color, including the actress who would go on to star as Snowstream
Yeah.
yeah.
in
Same
Snowstream.
thing. Same thing
Yeah.
as Laura,
Mhm.
Laura L. Sorry,
Yeah.
she was a person of color as well. So,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter. It's
I,
all okay.
I would love one day we could just celebrate the idea of just saying the actress was cast.
Yeah.
We
You know,
have a
yeah,
Supergirl
yes, we
on the
have a
big screen.
Supergirl, and the idea again, we are a long, unfortunate, very unfortunate, we are a
Oh
long way away from
wow.
that, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're gonna celebrate the fact of it because it hasn't happened, and we're gonna take that moment. We do not take that away from anything at this point. And this is what we're gonna get. I wait and see. And instead of being part of the toxic fandom, I'm gonna be like, "Bravo! Let's see what you can do."
And before we move on from that, Henry Cavill, just regarding Henry Cavill, who's to say he didn't reach out privately?
Exactly.
Uh, got her number. It's just maybe you can't do that on social media when you're in a open like negotiation with the character. So that kind of thing, I just I don't know. It's always silly to me when people are like make a statement on social media all the time.
Yeah.
I guess we'll jump into the second part of the DC Films stuff, which is Angel Manuel Soto is going to direct a Blue Beetle DC film. Uh, it's going to star his first Latino superhero movie and like as the main lead. And this is pretty cool and interesting because the last I heard, Blue Beetle was going to be kind of like a buddy team up with Ted Cord, Booster Gold, and Ted Cord and Booster Gold. So this, I'm going to be honest with you, after watching Young Justice and some of the DC animated movies, I'd much rather them going this route. And like Clay said before, this and that doesn't even include representation, just for story, and then representation just adds to even more to going this route. What do you guys think about this announcement?
Go for it, Clay.
This, like, I was about like, and I said it in our chat, and I said it to plenty of other people. I was so excited, and then I had to stop myself, and I said, I'm not going to believe anything until I see a set photo. Because if you go back all the way until where the Blue Beetle movie was rumored to be in development, not even like, hey, we have a writer, we're working on it. It was like, hey, we're kind of thinking about making this movie. It was announced the same time the Flash movie was announced. So it was within like a few weeks or a month of the Flash movie being announced as well. And we all know how the Flash has been in development hell. So seeing this,
I
I
think it's a
held
different
off.
layer of development hell for like the Flash at that point. I think we're like 6 or 7 layers of Dante's Inferno right now.
Well, it was just, I was just like, okay, I'm glad that they picked a person of color for the director. That was something that I was very excited about. I was like, okay, more representation there. I will be completely honest. I don't know who I want to play Blue Beetle. They haven't done anything with casting. I keep hearing everyone rant and rave about this kid that is on Cobra Kai right now on Netflix.
Yeah. Hmm.
He is a big
Um,
name right now.
Clay, just one thing about that. He,
They followed each
yeah,
other on
yeah.
Instagram. And so everybody's freaking out about that. I think he even did like a small little like skit or like audition on Instagram as well. I think I want to go back. Like most of my family has seen Cobra Kai, and they've told me, Clay, just sit down and watch it. You'll love it. You'll love it. Um, I'll have to go check it out. I want to check out first though, Angel Soto's Charm City Kings on HBO Max. I have
Hmm.
not seen it yet, but when I went to go follow him, I saw it on his banner. He has a prior relationship with WB, it seems, because of this. So I am, or Warner Media, I'm excited. I am excited about this movie. I don't want anybody to think that because I kind of questioned it, it doesn't mean that I'm excited. I'm super excited about this. Um, I the way I see this Blue Beetle coming in is, of course, this was 11 years ago, but think of how amazing Iron Man looked in 2000 and what 2006, 2008. Um, I would say this isn't an Iron Man story at all, but the suit of Blue Beetle can kind of work in the same way.
Mhm.
And if you can put that aesthetic in there, and I know a lot of people will immediately gravitate towards that. They're like, oh, he looks like Iron Man. Like his suit kind of resembles something of an Iron Man. Go for it. Like use that as an advantage more than a like, oh, it's Marvel versus DC thing. Use it for your advantage and then dive in deeper to what the scarab is and how alien it is and everything else. Get into the weird stuff, you know?
Mhm.
But I think I always thought like if you can do Iron Man, you can do a Blue Beetle. Why haven't they done this? And so finally it looks like they are doing it and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, and I don't take it. Your hesitation is more like production more than like deciding whether this is a good move on Warner Brothers' part. I mean, we've got to decide. We hear is that this is a production. We don't know if this is a Warner Max, this is an HBO Max original, or this going to be a theatrical release.
Mhm.
We don't know that yet, and you know, we've heard I can take both sides. Yeah, put it out in theaters, or because it's a quote unquote lesser known character, start it on HBO Max and do a Max original at that point. I mean, again, there's pluses or minuses to either side. Whatever it is, I'm watching it. Wherever it is, I'm
Mhm.
watching it. But the idea of Jaime Reyes, when that character was introduced in the comics, that was, we had just gone spoiler alert for people who have not read, Infinite Crisis. Ted Cord died and died in amazing fashion at that point. We didn't have a Blue Beetle, and even his idea, he didn't use the Scarab like we've seen Jaime Reyes actually use and become one with the Scarab. So the fact that people say, well, what about how are we getting this and not Ted Cord? Who says we're not getting Ted Cord? Who says that we don't have any sort of Ted Cord like thing? Let's not jump to all these conclusions that how dare we jump ahead. Again, let's that. But I love the idea of representing with the director, because we get this on the Marvel side too with Moon Knight. We get this with Miss Marvel. We put people in charge of these projects when representation of who the character is going to play a huge part of the story of the character. And that's what we see even in the comics with Blue Beetle's Jaime Reyes. And I can't be again, sign me up. I'm there. I can't wait. This was a complete huge surprise, and credit Umberto for getting the scoop on it and getting the quote from the director so that, we knew it was we knew it was real. That's big time. And I don't think anyone really kind of saw this one coming when it did.
Oh, it was right out of left field. And I would honestly, to Clay's point too, I'd feel more confident if it was on HBO Max. Look at how quickly they turned out that Peacemaker uh, series from just seeing the movie. So I would be more confident, and I would like it to be a series. If I'm being honest with you, maybe
Mhm.
the attack movie now, maybe they'll change your mind because I think it would be really cool on HBO Max as a series. But also, I'd like for it to get to everybody, and HBO Max isn't kind of with everybody right now. So big time release is fine by me. Like I said, I loved the character before the times I've seen him, and but the Ted Cord thing, who's to say we don't get Ted Cord as kind of similar to Hank Pym
Mm-hmm.
in Ant-Man in terms of that mentor role with Jaime? That's kind of something that I would love to see. If I'm
You
being
know,
honest with
they've
you.
always wanted to do it in the comics, and unfortunately, uh, and this is something else that I think that if you want to see this show, if you want to see this movie, whatever it may be, people need to show up for it because it is very unfortunate. But Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes titles do not last very long. Uh, Nobody buys that title. It's very, very unfortunate. But because of that, the stories are always cut short. And so we're never actually able to see a real working relationship between Ted and Jaime. And so if we are able to see that on the big screen or the small screen, I think that would be very enjoyable.
Well, we could the success of the show could lend to a lengthier comic run as well.
Yeah.
So that's something to hope for. But this is all I like. I want to be super excited for these kind of announcements, but I'm still here waiting for my Nightwing movie that was announced back in 2016. So
Oh,
I'm
poor
gonna
Christmas
hold
K.
my
Yeah.
super excited at this until we get some set photos. But like I believe, at least I'm believing that the Flash is filming, so I'll take that as a positive.
We've seen
You
the
guys
outside
want
of
to
a
take a
building.
break before we discuss this? You want to take a break before we discuss this Vanity Fair article with Zack Snyder?
Yeah, we're gonna go deep on that one.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and for people watching us live on YouTube, it's like we never left, and we're back. Okay, guys, when I read this, I knew a lot of things, but there were some things that I had no idea, and this blew me away. So, what did you guys think, just overall, about the Vanity Fair article about Zack Snyder and just the journey of Snyder Cut?
This is what I'm putting in my wife's hands before we sit down and watch Justice League. I'm watching it way before her, but I've already told her. I said she already knows about Sean's book. I've gotten a chance to read it already. It comes out next week, and his book is great. This is even the more cliff notes, but still gives as much a quick 10-minute read. It took me even quicker than that, but this is the thing you want to put into your other mainstream people's hands who have no idea what happened and why this movie has come out. I think it does a good job. I think, yes, as we'll get into, there are some parts I didn't much care for, but I say on a whole, I'd say about 90%, this is probably the best, probably mainstream trade has been in showing a quote unquote fair view of what has transpired. Again, it is not perfect, but it is probably the best we've gotten for this entire movement, in a trade.
Yeah, no, I talked about this very briefly with my co-host of Comic Book Legion with Mark, and the one thing that I got out of this, because a majority of us have been following this for a very long time, so we have known, bits and pieces here. Like Chris said, there's going to be a book coming out next week. Gives a little bit more detail on that. This, though, when I started diving a little bit more deeper into Zach's idea of like how everything went down with Autumn and how the movie pertains to her and the questions that he's asking himself while he's making this movie and how important those questions are and how they relate to Autumn. Um, that was a quick punch to the gut.
Mm-hmm.
And my stomach was in my throat at that point while reading it. It's rough. It's heartbreaking, and there is a lot of details in here that of course, it's gonna tilt some heads. You're questioning some things. We have some anonymous people in this article as well saying some stuff that
I have
is
theories on that.
that
Oh,
it's
yeah.
you have to raise an eyebrow at it, but overall, I didn't even think about it, Chris. You're absolutely right. I'm probably going to send this article to my wife fairly soon. And so, hey, because everything that I learn about the Snyder Cut, uh, I always secondhand it to her, so that way she's in the know. But
Mm-hmm.
to
Same.
have her read this, I think would really open her eyes a little bit more to what's going on. So it is very, very informative. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about those anonymous people and some other things going on in this article.
Yeah. How do you feel, Travis?
I'm going to take a page from your book and definitely share this with my girlfriend before I get her to watch the movie as well. Um, there was a few things that stuck out to me. A couple things that we didn't really need. Like I didn't need a psychiatrist to analyze toxic fandom. Like kind of know how terrible toxic fandom is. I know it's just for the general audience
But I will tell you
in
what,
general and the
she
way we're
has an
crafting.
awesome podcast. It is a
Oh,
awesome
and she has a
podcast.
point.
Yeah.
She has a point too in what she's saying. It's just that
Yeah, it seemed a
and
little heavy-handed
the
on that one. That was that was not. I agree.
well
Yeah.
when she loses a little steam because she was following Kaylee Donaldson, who's been pretty toxic herself, which is really funny to me. thought the writer should have done a better job of you could pick somebody. I'm not saying you couldn't, because I have more Zack Snyder Justice League or Snyder Cut fans blocked than any other section of fandom. Like, I'm not ashamed to say I love this, and there's so many good people, but there's so many trolls that are so mean and say so many terrible things. So I know that it's out there, but I just didn't think that needed to be focused on. When you got the quote from Zach, I thought you could have ended it there, where he said, like, I think this is terrible. I don't give a light to anybody. I didn't think you needed to dive in any more into that. But still, like Chris said, I think this is an article to show anybody if you want it, to just give them the cliff notes. Because if you want a real breakdown of a great book, you can go to Geek Ultimate Alliance, DC Alliance Chapter 34, and listen to a great interview with Mr. Chris Belka and Sean O'Connell himself, the author of the Lisa Snyder Cut book. That's something that I'll read, but I don't know if my girlfriend will. So I think this kind of thing is perfect for the general audience.
I think one of the things how they started it off was the biggest thing that I think took a lot of us by surprise, and the confirmation that Deborah Snyder and Chris Nolan in 2017 viewed the theatrical cut. And, her quote saying, it's just weird. It's a weird experience. I don't know how many people have had that experience. You've worked on something for so long, and then you leave, and then you see what happened to it. And then Zach saying what Deborah told him when they came out, and how upset Chris Nolan was, and obviously how upset Deborah Snyder was with what they viewed. And they came out, and Zach said, like, she came out and said, you can never see this movie. And she chimes in and says, because it would just break your heart.
Now, as serious as this all is, I'm going to make this a little bit more, heartfelt and a little bit more with smiles. The memes that have come out with Nolan defending Zach are amazing. All the memes.
Pointing at you, Chris. Pointing at you. That video you sent me today made me spit out rice at the supper table.
Oh, that one? Oh, yeah.
My girlfriend's like...
There is a great TikTok that has gone out there, and I want to give credit where credit is due at that point. I saw this, and it's not going to do just, but look it up. If you've ever seen the movie Whiplash, outstanding film, they have superimposed Zach's head on J.K. Simmons' body, and he's just basically saying, and let me just tell you this one thing. If I ever see this, and he's holding Justice League in my hand, says a lot more F-bombs than I'm willing to say on air at this point, but I will, I will effing stop being any more polite. And then you see someone walk in from the background with Joss Whedon's head, and you effing get out of here at this point before I end you. That whole TikTok sums it all up right there.
It's so good. But
bravo to the TikTok creator of that.
And I will say this, like, there's so many people that are like, oh, that's so beautiful. I love Nolan for this. I know Nolan, like, I love Nolan for this. But, like, we know that Nolan is he's made a very big, tussle about everything that's going on with Warner Media and the whole theatrical versus HBO Max and all that. He's all for the director. This shouldn't surprise anybody,
But people also forget that he also handpicked Zach for Man of Steel.
Yeah. And that's why if you remember in Man of Steel, the Wayne satellite was the Wayne font from Nolan's movie. Like, that's the one thing that people don't like. They're like, oh, look, it's a Wayne satellite. No, if you look deeper into that is the font that they used for his movie. And like, they have a really good working relationship. They admire each other. They admire each other's work. Zach has been on several interviews, like, just gushing over Nolan's Batman. Like, it's true. But I was like, okay, that's cool. But then I remembered everything that's been going on with Nolan. I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. He sees that somebody else's movie is being obliterated by by a studio that really was just like, hey, I just want to put some money in my pocket at that point. And Nolan was like, no, I'm not okay with that. And he even agreed with Deborah, like, no, we can't let him watch this. So I think that is very cool. to have that kind of relationship with a director. You don't really hear it all that much. You hear people say, "Oh yeah, he has great work, he does great things," but you never really see that kind of intimate relationship with directors.
Of all the reaction videos I've ever watched, the one that I would give anything to watch is Chris Nolan watching Justice League.
Oh,
I can only imagine when he left the theater, like that was. Oh, but yeah, like I said, they both said he can't see it because it would break him. So I couldn't agree more. I thought that he would be terrible, and I never knew that was a thing, but it does make sense with Nolan being part of WB as he is and being executive producer still on Justice League. I'm pretty sure he was credited as executive producer for Justice League, so he would get a chance to see it. I still disagree with his cinema only but I can agree with him on this point. I can see why he would take up for Zach just as a director, but uh, there's several other things in this article, boys. I don't want to jump ahead, but I really do want to talk about those two little weasels, and one of them having to be on set each day while Zach was on there. And I don't know if I'm because I reread the article once just to make sure, but was Whedon directing scenes before Snyder quit? Because that's kind of what I got from the article. And they were giving him more power before he quit. That's what I meant to say. Kind of what I read there was they were giving him more power. It seemed to me, it said something like it seemed that they were giving Whedon more power. Then after that, then they quit.
Yeah, it says that soon it became clear, you almost take and quoted it verbatim, like was giving Whedon more and more power. He would not just advise during reshoots, but also do some directing himself. Snyder says that he only had one conversation with Whedon and about the studio's notes.
Like that blew me away. That like
I must have just skimmed that
happened.
because I did not remember that from this article.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Clay. I read it the first time and didn't catch that, but I watched, and I don't know if Robert Burnett is a bad guy, a good guy, but he did a pretty like it's just I guess one of his channel. I don't watch it frequently. One of his YouTube videos come up on my I get how to build a like shelter in random YouTube videos. So this came up and I watched it. It was like an hour, but he broke down the entire article and was pretty fair shake. And when he got to that part, he discussed it like I said, because I read it first and I completely went by it not thinking that. And then he pointed it out. And after reading it again, that's what it sounds like to me that Snyder didn't quit before some of this stuff happened.
Yeah, he even said like he kind of welcomed, he said, when he was brought on, because, John's brought him on, he's starting to do, recruiting him to do, some rewrites for it. They did ask like Whedon and Johns to be a part of this, and they both declined for probably obvious reasons. It said once again, Snyder was gracious, even hopeful. I thought maybe he could write some cool scenes. I thought that would be fun.
Which
yeah, and they point out here too, one thing, Clay, they point out here too that another director might not have handled it as good as Zach did. Like it would have snapped and left set. Wouldn't have took this. So Zach
let's also be
was like, yeah, I'll collab with him. Maybe it'll be good.
Well, let's also be fair too. I doubt Zach was really thrilled about the idea of what was going on either.
Oh yeah.
And I'd like to think that, oh yeah, sure, come on and do this. He's trying to get his movie out as much as possible at this point. And yeah, he's just like, fine, sure, I welcome him. I've, not seen, maybe, I don't know how much he's seen. I don't know how much he knew about Whedon, but saying, you know what, why not? If it's going to continue letting me film my movie, sure.
It's interesting that you put it in that sense, because I've heard a lot of people take it into the idea of like, oh, he was generous enough to like, or open-heartedly, letting Joss come in and be like, hey, let's collaborate, let's do something, like being genuine about it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the way that you're saying, he was, of course, probably more pertained in like trying to stay focused on the film after what had happened. But I don't know. I it's hard to say what he was truly feeling, and I don't think like
Oh
he
yeah, I mean,
Snyder is the professional. He's not just going to go into this article and be like,
Oh.
yeah, fuck that guy, you know,
Yeah.
and say some things like that. Sorry for cursing right there. I'm just getting real passionate right now. But you know, it's just I would think that he is probably in the middle of the road with that
Mhm.
kind of thing. You know,
That's
it's just
well.
like,
That's why I kind of said he's some part of him probably, you know, is a little guy had to have been just a little perturbed, just a
yeah.
bit, you know, at that point. That's why I agree with you. Like he's someplace in the middle, saying, "Sure, I welcome any input at that point because I can only grow from it." You know, and we've seen Jack in almost his interviews with whatever. He's a very gracious and very professional guy.
I want to point out that I also think that he was seething mad about these decisions, Chris. It's just that he put his best foot forward and was actually nice and welcoming to these people. But that doesn't surprise me, given all I've ever heard any actor say is how great of a time they have with him and how his sets are great. So that doesn't surprise me, any of this stuff.
But you talked about like the watchdogs on the set with Berg and John's being brought in and how each one of them had to be there for a day. And even what was it? Berg's interesting and said it was really tricky, not in a position that I love, to be honest. He said, I tried to be forthright about what I thought creatively. My job was to try to mediate between creator whose vision is instinctively dark and a studio that perceived right or wrong that the fans wanted something lighter. I was respectful to the director and didn't pursue things that were coming at me from the corporate side that I thought weren't in line with what made the best movie. And Snyder follows up by saying, you could say babysit. Many filmmakers would have blistered at this. It didn't bother me too much because they weren't really that threatening. I just felt the ideas they did have where they were trying to interject humor and stuff like that. It wasn't anything that was so too outrageous. That's an interesting thing because, you know, what our takes have been is just like how much it is. Actually, yeah, they were just babysitting. They were kind of annoying every once in a while, but it wasn't, they did not have the impact that I guess he's even since like people have thought they had.
Yeah, not so cutthroat as
Well, they couldn't have. Go, Clay, keep going. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say not as cutthroat as what most people, and I mean it goes with the territory of people just being fans, but
Yeah.
you know, people like you said, they thought that, oh, they're going to trample all over Snyder's vision and do all of these different things, dissect it and tear it apart and do all these things, and from here it's like, yeah, they were a nuisance, but they weren't, you know, what is that Godfather quote? You know, what did you do to my boy? You know,
Yeah.
it's nothing like that, or at least that's what Snyder is saying in that quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, they're. I don't even know. I completely lost my train of thought with that.
Sorry about that.
Well, that's okay. Maybe one day, maybe it'll come back to me.
Well, one thing I did want to bring up in the article that was kind of controversial a little bit.
I think I know where you're going.
We get some new images with the Joker here, and we see Jesus Joker or Joker Jesus, however you want to say it. What did you guys think when this? Because I saw the photo before I saw the article. Like that was
Yeah.
the one thing that
Same.
everybody was freaking out about, and I was like, okay, where is this even coming from? And that's when the article started showing up more.
From things I've understood, or at least people's either assessments or things that from people, quote unquote, a little bit connected to it, have said that Joker, he's more of the kind of the Ghost from Christmas Past with when it comes to the nightmare sequence. I'm not sure in the sense of he's there, but he's also kind of the guide for Bruce in the nightmare sequence. And so this might be maybe our intro to Joker or some Joker being Joker in the sense of kind of screwing around. But this, you know, that's what I've heard whether it ends up being true or not, but that's kind of what it seems like. That's where I was like, yeah, it's freaking weird. And, what, sure, I guess. But, but that was my rationale headcanon. Okay, if what I'm hearing is true, okay, this kind of tracks with who Joker is supposed to be in this nightmare sequence. He may be there in some moments, and then he's like over Bruce's shoulder, like, the quote unquote devil on his shoulder saying, hey, this is what it could be, or this is where it is, some kind of screwed up Ghost of Christmas Past. Or in this case, Ghost of Christmas
And this
Future.
could just be a regular, just be a shot that Zach's taking behind the scenes, because we all know he loves to take those as well.
Leto being
just
Leto.
Be being Leto while in between takes or anything.
And that's the big thing that I've been seeing is like, of course, everybody wants to throw something out controversial, and this whole idea of Leto being a cult leader, and I almost feel like that could be far from the truth, and Leto just being like, "Hey Zach, I got an idea for a photo." Like,
you want to get some, you want to go trending? Sure. We'll do this.
Let's you thought that the whole and of course I feel like this photo was taken a while back, but even if it wasn't, they'll be like, hey, you remember how our trailer got trending just because of that small little phrase at the end? Let's take it far and beyond and put me in a Jesus outfit. I think
everything with Joker trends. Mm-hmm. Everything with Joker trends is crazy. I was blown away, like I said before, with the trailer reactions for people actually looking at Joker. There's a couple other things. Who do we think the mystery executive is that called this a piece of shit?
I think one of two people. I think Charles Roven.
Mm-hmm.
It could be one. He was a former executive DC Films, or it also could be Diane Nelson again. Yes, Diane Nelson is directly quoted in this. However, I have also read
easily said, don't put that in there.
Exactly. I could have. I've seen articles of this nature in different ways where it's the same person but saying, "I will give you this quote. However, you cannot direct it to me." And they say, "Okay, what can I say that can give you enough protection of anonymity?" And this was a high-level former executive. That way, it can run the gamut. But I think it's either Roven or Nelson.
I want to say it's Nelson. I want to say it just because everything that she was put through,
Oh yeah. I mean, it totally tracks at that point. Nelson, especially how, there was that period of time where she would drop Jeff Johns is no friend of mine, then disappear, and then come back and then drop another gem of that. So yeah, it could totally, like I said, either one of them I could totally buy.
Yeah.
But it was nice hearing that, saying we saw it. We saw the movie, and it was a complete garbage fire, and we made it 10 times worse by putting this man in charge.
And I understand. I completely understand. There's a moment where it's shit, it's too late. But to not even say anything, to just look at all your other buddies and be like, yeah, I guess this is it, and not say anything to Whedon, not say anything.
That was a movie.
Yeah. It'd be almost like us walking out of the movie.
We did a good job, boys. We did a good job.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, just being in that room. And
there's two other points of this article that. Sorry, Chris. Other points in this article that were driving me crazy. And I want to talk about one for sure, and that is the 2-hour mandate where Snyder dropped that. How am I supposed to introduce 6 characters and an alien with potential for world domination in 2 hours? And the little bit of shade, I mean, I can do it. It can be done. Clearly, it was done, but I didn't see it. I thought that, but I didn't see it could work both ways. He didn't see that cut where it was done, and he didn't see how you could actually do that with this movie.
So yeah, I mean, if you do a full cut of your movie at that point, without necessarily, most of them don't have that kind of mandate. They know most directors know, okay, I'm not going to get a 4-hour cut into the theaters. Okay. but they're in their mind, they're filming this stuff so that if they are having to cut certain things that they know they're going to end up cutting, can they put the stuff they really want to keep in there and still hold to a quote unquote standard without being told, oh, it's got to be 2 hours. Crying out loud. What I hate saying this. There have not been many Marvel movies that have gone a 2 hour cut, if
Well, not just
but just the idea of cutting a movie and just putting a time on it, especially a superhero movie, especially the team up of all team ups for DC, you're going to put a 2 hour limit on it. Give me a break.
well, not just that.
That-
To even remember back when like a Justice League movie was announced, back when it was announced, and even before then, I think, because at that point there was still an idea that Zach had, and that he let everybody know, whether it be at Comic-Con or whatever. It was 2 movies. It was supposed to be two
At
movies.
least. Yeah.
And that would have worked great. There has been plenty of movies to do the exact same thing. And the WB just wasn't having it. And I think that is just stupid. Absolutely stupid. Asinine.
BVS was cut a half hour, and I remember reading the reasoning was to get more more plays a day.
Yeah. I mean,
So that the movie would be shown more times, so you could sell them, thus make more money. That was the logic behind the cutting. And clearly they went another degree with it with Justice League. The other thing that really stuck out to me was them wanting him to release the rough cut that was on his laptop.
yeah.
And the three reasons he gave why were like, I just love that. I want to read that verbatim because he was like, that's a no, a hard no. And they're like, but why? You can just put up the rough cut. And he's like, here's why. 3 reasons. 1, you get the internet off your back, which is probably the main reason for wanting to do this. Yes, that's 100% the main reason for WP Pictures wanting to do that. To feel vindicated for making things right, I guess, on some level. And 3, you get a shitty version of the movie, and you can point to and say, see, it's not good anyway, so maybe I was right. And he was like, no chance. I'd rather it be this mythical unicorn, sorry. And I couldn't respect him more for that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing people get on to, oh, Snyder said it was done, it was ready, and they just own it. It's like, all right, you got him. He said something that you took really literally at that point, and he was just like, he left before he could finish all the effects. So when he says it's done, the cut is done. It didn't mean that effects were done. I know we've already rehashed this, but it's just like it drives me up a wall when I still see that stuff come out. It's just like, all right, fine. If you're gonna take them literally, okay, again, you got them. But that I love, like you said,
I'm gonna come clean here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come clean here for a second and just say, I watched X-Men Origins Wolverine leaked, and there was missing VFX. It actually came up on the screen, missing VFX shots. So I watched that. You know what? I understood the movie and got it, and it was a cut of the movie. It wasn't a finished cut, but it was a cut of the movie.
Yeah, but probably, even though X-Men Origins, not a great film. I mean, excuse me, the Wolverine Origins, not a great film by any stretch of the imagination. You probably liked it better with those effects in there. Outside of if it was that, outside you could have cut out Deadpool and just like not even ignore
and
it.
Here's the thing that I think is it blows my mind when people make the argument for that kind of thing, because you have the special features added into the film of Endgame, and it wasn't finished. Like,
shocking.
And people were like, yes, this is so awesome. They added this part of the film. And they do the same thing for a lot of different films. And for some reason, and we know why, but it happens to Justice League, and everybody's just like, oh, nope, not good enough. This isn't good,
Oh yeah, there is implicit bias when it comes to the portrayals of it, and that's a whole other show in a can at that point we could do. Maybe it's a Patreon episode we can rant and rave about it, because again, yes, I host a Marvel show, and I'm also admitting there is also implicit bias with it and against DC when it comes DC and Warner Brothers when it comes to anything much about it. And if you get any sort of positive credit, it's just like I die of shock. You know,
Aquaman, like what happened there? How did that
we
work?
have to say something good. Oh God, I mean, Batman versus Superman. Well, okay, we'll give Affleck save the movie. Okay,
Actually, I'm going to tell people you have to read the article. Really, I don't want to do. There's so much on an emotional level with Adam. You just have to read it. It just hits home so hard.
There's a moment in there. I can't find the exact quotes, but there's a moment where he was saying, like, she was questioning her reason for living,
her worth.
her worth.
Yeah.
And she was asking these questions not only to herself, but she was saying them out loud to her father, to Zach, saying, who am I? What is my worth? What am I doing here? And to know that he was asking himself those exact questions while the continuing of this film, you know, he got the opportunity to continue this film or finish it. Like, that is heartbreaking, man.
yeah. And the fact that people just say over and over and over again, like Zach doesn't get Superman, Zach doesn't do this. You know, he said this, and it hits home close to home to me. The film, he's a father of adopted children. Autumn was adopted with him and his first wife. I'm a father of adopted kids. All right, my son and daughter, you know, boy girl twins at that point. But you know, see, in saying this, saying adopted father is one of the reasons he was so invested in the story of Kal-El, a powerful being becoming Superman, thanks to the love and care of Jonathan and Martha Kent. You know, he gets this. He's invested in this character. So I'll be the first one, and I know I have a legion of people behind me, and you two included, saying to say that he doesn't get Superman. No, you just have a different interpretation of Superman, and it's not wrong. It's not wrong. That is your Superman.
We will get to that later.
Yeah. That is your
Soon.
Superman later. But you know, it is a different interpretation, and I buy into it just like I buy into others and don't buy into us. But last thing I like about this is the whole idea of what we did not see is a Bruce and Lois love thing that WB was like, no, absolutely not. We're not doing that.
And I'm okay with them nixing this idea. I'm also okay with Zach having the idea. I watched World Finest from DCAU, and that was all over that. They were the same age, and they were both living at the time. Neither one of them were dead, but still, they have gone this route before. So
you guys don't want a Twilight love triangle?
I would have loved that Batman speech to Alfred in the cave, though. That was
Team Affleck? Team what would it be?
Soups.
Lois and Bruce
Lark.
well, there's the Clois.
Yeah.
There's the
Lark.
Clark and Lois. And then what would Bruce and Lois be?
Brulane.
Brois.
I don't like that at all. Or even brain.
Well, here's the thing. Like on its edge, I was like, nope,
Oh.
I'm not necessarily. I'm not. Again, there is comic and animated background that says that this could happen at that point and has happened. But you know what? It's like on its level, it's saying, yeah, not necessarily wanting that, but I'm willing to give it a chance just to see it happen, just to see what it would have been. But it's like right now, I'm glad it's not in it. You know,
And
right now.
the magic twist of the ending is the baby that Lois has is not Clark's.
Tune in next week.
Just like the baby that Barbara was having wasn't Dick's.
Clay, spoiler alert, it's a baby Darkseid.
Hey,
Oh,
that baby
man.
Darkseid is cute. I'll tell you that much. That is the cutest looking homicidal maniac we have ever seen.
But yes, this article was amazing. Anybody should go and read it. If you want to know anything about the Snyder Cut without having to dive in deep, read this before you watch the movie if you haven't been keeping up on this. I think we should dive into the last topic of the night, the main course here, but let's just take a quick ad break before we dive in. And we're back. And on YouTube, it's like we never left. Okay, guys, we have a new DC CW pilot I'm drinking from the OG DCCW Godfather. And I gotta say, I enjoyed this pilot. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to enjoy it, but there was a lot more that I liked than I didn't like. So I'm excited to hear both of your thoughts. Overall, what did you both think?
Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, I'll go. I really enjoyed it. I tried to set my expectations as low as I could get. That trailer did not help because that said, darn it, I didn't want a bad trailer, but it was just like seeing that trailer was like, oh, darn it, I'm going to have high expectations now because that trailer was so awesome and so well put together and so many things I did like about it. Um, it, I was very impressed by what I saw in what they put out there. Uh, a number of beats I was just kind of calling at that point, especially with the Suns, the relationship, kind of how things were going, and that's fine. I expect that with certain CW shows. That's just what it is. You can either like it or hate it or accept it. I like some of it. I accept most of it. And I cringe at other parts, but but that's just the CW. That's what you get. And people say, "Oh, I hate it." So that's fine. Whatever. I I enjoy. I think I can't remember the actor's name, but Tyler Heck, who's the actress that plays Lois Lane?
Mitzi Tolick.
Okay, they have very good chemistry, and I can totally buy them. So that is obviously key when you're doing a Superman Lois show. I've got to buy that they can do that. But yeah, initially, I don't want to get too much into specific parts yet, but initially, great. I'm here for the season.
Yeah, most definitely. I will not say so. As we kind of teased, everybody has their interpretation of Superman. Everybody does. Superman has a very special place in my heart. Um, the premiere of Smallville was very special to me. And I will say, for me personally, I don't think it was as good as the Smallville premiere, but god damn, this was a good show.
Mm.
I was sharing some words with Chris while we were watching it, and
Well, let me pause 1 second. When I started messaging you, I was like, "Oh, he's on a different time zone. Is he seeing the same time?" Because I don't want. When I said what I said when I first said it, I was like, I kind of said, "Oh shoot, I don't know if he's watching it at the same time I am."
no, I actually got to sit down and watch it live.
Good.
I think the only time zone that isn't watching it live as Eastern and Central is Pacific. I think
Okay.
Pacific time is 2 hours later or an hour later. I can't remember.
So
But
yeah, so I was worried about. It's like, oh shoot.
so we were going back and forth, and there is very much some CW dialogue that I was just like, okay, I can wipe that away because visually, this was so good to look at. I think that the cinematography, this is like if I can choose between every DC CW show, that is including technically Smallville,
Mm-hmm.
because at the very end was CW. Nothing as far as the way the camera was placed, the way the aesthetic looked, none of them looked like what we saw last night. As far as the aesthetic of what it was, that's from what I was seeing. I really enjoyed it. I have my gripes about some nitpicking stuff, but this was a Superman show. And I don't care if you're one of those heartthrobs that are saying that, this show is for children and, the DCEU is for men and all of this other stupid stuff. This is a Superman show.
Cool. I'm a child. I'm 8 years old. I accept that. Look at behind me.
Exactly. Same.
Sorry.
Same. And
Take
I
me.
like you said, the chemistry with every character
Mhm.
was great. I did love the chemistry between Superman and Lois. The kids, I was telling Chris, this is very generic CW teenage drama type stuff, but it works. They needed to hit their target audience, and they did it. And even in the making of, they said that this show is a show that everyone can watch, and I totally agree. I could I'm pretty sure that my dad probably sat down and watched it on the premiere because he's one of the biggest Superman fans I've ever known. But if he didn't, I could probably text him and say, "Hey, you can watch this," and he would actually enjoy it because it literally has a little bit of something for the old time Superman fans, the newer age Superman fans, and even people who want to be introduced to the character.
Yeah, I gotta say, some of the stuff that I really loved was the family dynamic and watching Lois and Clark deal with the kids and not having everything go swimmingly, which is what sometimes is depicted. The chemistry, like Chris said, was great, and the cinematography, like Clay pointed out, stuff that I really, really loved about this. There's only just a couple things I didn't love. Let's just talk about some of the things that we liked and we didn't like here.
Mhm. I would say besides the cinematography, which was great, I loved kind of the darker tone, the coloring of it. All of us being Zack Snyder fans, that's you're swimming to us. Oh, gonna have to note that. But I think yeah, the dynamics between Lois and Clark, the family, I really enjoyed, and I love the characters. I love the ending because I know what that I want to see exactly what more of this villain if when we get to that point.
Questions for you about that. I have questions for you about that.
I one thing I will say this, one thing that I felt very odd, and I think that they will elaborate a little bit more throughout the season. I think that it's something that is going to evolve or devolve, one of the two, is the relationship with Lois's dad with Clark.
Mhm.
That very first conversation, I said it out loud. That was weird because we are unfamiliar with General Lane being buddy buddy with Superman.
Yeah, it doesn't
BFFs.
happen.
And it so you see the buddy buddy in the beginning, but near the middle or near the end, really, you see a slight change,
Mhm.
in how he's feeling. And I'm like, oh, that's the General Lane I know.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if it was just a directing thing or they just didn't hit it at the very beginning on what it was supposed to be. But and it might just be, that awkward tension between in-laws that's like, hey, we're gonna try to be friends, but at the same time, like you're an alien and you're Superman, doing all this other stuff. But that was one thing I still felt a little off of. One thing that I did like were the Easter eggs.
Yes.
We had uh, Schuster, Siegel, Donner, uh, all those names popped up as doctors and therapists. I thought were really, really cool. A little tilt of the hat there. And uh, I enjoyed the twist at the end because I saw it coming.
Yeah. we can't have a Superman show without Luthor.
I was a little lost there, not gonna lie. There was some stuff. Clay, to your point about General Lane, he was fine when Superman was listening to him and doing what he wanted, but then the first time he says no, different tune entirely. So I think you might
Mhm.
be onto something there. Uh, Lana's boyfriend or husband or whatever is a dick.
Husband.
Oh,
Dick,
Kyle. Oh,
major douche.
that just
Yeah,
sounds like a
Kyle.
douche name. I'm sorry. Anybody who's named Kyle, I apologize to you. But just the way he was acting out, like my wife even said she's not, a big superhero head. She just watches it because I watch it. But she heard like two words come out of his mouth, and she was like, "I don't like that guy."
Or even the daughter, like you get the teenage daughter, a little angst, saying, "Oh, my dad's saying." It's like even your daughter is like, "You're
Yeah.
you're a
You're a
d-bag,
dick.
man. Come on."
And I'm gonna take a while for me to get into the boys and like have the boys connect with me. Right now, they're not. But the thing that really kind of annoyed me, I'll say, it won't piss me off, but they really devalued Kryptonite for me now from what I've seen it, the effect it had on Superman before. Because he gets straight up stabbed in the chest, and because he remembers the good memories and the love, the power. I know it's the power of love and all that, But I mean, when you have the one weakness against him, and then all he does is literally puts his hand in, hauls it out, and lets it drop. So I did not like that. I found that took away from Kryptonite a little bit, just at what it could do to Superman.
I will say this: it pertains to the comics, it pertains to the movies. Um, Nowadays, superheroes don't have weaknesses. One thing that was shown very early on, as far as Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, the whole point of that part when he is lifting the giant Kryptonian island out of the water into space, it's the idea that he can overcome the
Mhm.
power of kryptonite if need be. And it's supposed to be that thing of like, oh, I'm in chains, but I can still break free type of thing. And I totally get it. I totally get it. It didn't take me out at all because of that. And I know that might be a little hypocritical over some things that I've said with other heroes. 1984, I'm sorry. But it's just what it is. Because with somebody as big as Superman, as powerful as Superman, like you especially for a TV show, like you can't just like that was the whole thing with the animated series. If you watch the documentary on it, they said they had to depower him so that
Mhm.
way he could be punched around a little bit.
If I wanted it,
And
you'd be dead already.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree, and I wouldn't be against that storyline, but to do it right at the gate, the end of your first, that's wasting that you could build to that. That could like mean something more than throwing that away. And I just think that kind of moment should mean more than what it
Mhm.
did, and should be at like a season finale where you don't think he's going to get out, kind of thing. This is more. I just thought it was used too early, in my opinion. That's all.
Yeah, and Clay and I talked about something, his mom dying. So, basically in the first episode, it was just like, yeah, Clay and my response to Clay was like, I'm not a fan, but I can see the point of they're trying to take away the quote unquote crutches of Clark's life to kind of basically he needs to be and start remembering the past. Again, we have a Jor-El cast for this show, so we know we're going to get some Jor-El in this at that point. We're going to probably get more flashbacks between Martha
it might
and
be as
Jonathan.
early as next episode because
Yeah,
we did see a small tease that they're going to the fortress.
yeah.
So
So
we might see or hear Jor-El,
uh,
next
yeah.
episode.
And the other thing I called, even though it was just setting it up like that, because again, I watched too many of these shows. I totally called Jordan being the one with the powers and not,
Oh
not the
yeah, that
brother, not
was.
the other brother, just because it's like this is totally setting up. It's like, it's the kid who's always kind of sickly at that point, then all of a sudden, like just saying, he's got the
Also,
powers.
who's to say Jonathan doesn't get powers because, like Clark
Well,
Yeah.
said,
I
Jordan's
I
powers are
told
manifesting differently that
I
not like
told
his.
this to my wife. I said, just because, again, CW, they love tropes. There's going to be an episode where they trade places. John's going to have the powers, Jordan's
Mhm.
not. It's going to teach them about each other, that kind of storyline. Can totally see it. I can see in the future John actually developing powers. And then because of the show's budget, it's just going to, pertain on who's more important that episode and
Yeah.
who's going to be using their powers there. Stu is in the chat, and we were talking just briefly today uh, about the idea of Jordan being diagnosed with anxiety and how
Mhm.
that affects his powers and possibly the medication
Yeah.
causing his powers to either be a
Ooh.
little out of whack or
Mhm.
everything else. And I want to be very sensitive on this topic because I don't want to you know throw out the idea of anxiety not being anything or anything else. But I did say it'll be very interesting to see if the writers will actually use that as an obstacle for Jordan.
Yeah. I like the idea of I thought it was very believable of them being very angry with Clark when they found out, and I think that was very believable. I could see that being a total the reaction at that point. It's just like, why didn't you trust us with this? We're your sons. We would understand.
Clark
And
sounded so alien.
Yes.
in
But
that explanation.
we all understand the reasoning, because if you
Yeah.
look for Clay's Smallville, when you look at when Pete was told, then he gets captured and beaten trying to get the information out of him. One slip up could cause that. But we're on a tight crunch here with time, unfortunately, tonight,
One quick
because
thing, Fleischer, homage to
yes,
Fleischer in the
I'm
beginning.
going to throw it to you guys. Final thoughts, final things you want to point out before we have to jet, and also leave your handles after you give your final thoughts. And if you want to give a ranking out of 10, that's fine too.
Love the Fleischer opening. That was really cool. Did not see that one coming. Again, I'm looking forward to it. I think there's a lot more potential to the show. Again, follow me on Twitter at Chris Balga, Marvel Alliance, World's Finest True Believers. Great. Out of 10, I'd say this was an 8.
Some final thoughts here. I love the name drops, Morgan Edge, Captain Luther. That's very, very interesting at the very end. I will tell you this show made me re-download Injustice. I played a few rounds last night, so that was very, very fun. If you didn't know, Paul Kent is actually a legacy casting from Supergirl. He played the mayor in Supergirl. That was something that I just found out earlier today on my second rewatch of the show. You can find me at Fanboy Clay, and I would have to be right up there with you with putting this about an 8.85. If we talk about this anymore, I could possibly push it up to a 9.
You guys have pushed me up a little bit from my ranking. I enjoyed it. Like I had some gripes, but for the most part, I thought it was a good step forward. It didn't have that wow factor for me. Like when I watched Arrow and Oliver Queen broke those guys' neck, I was like, wow, this is a different show. When the Flash Barry meets Oliver on that rooftop as Green Arrow, I'm like, wow, this is a different show. So I didn't have that wow thing, but not every pilot from DCCW gets that for me. So I get a solid 7.5 out of 10 for me for the pilot. I'm invested. I can't wait to see what happens going forward. You can find me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can find Greg at the Bat Daddy 52. Once again, thanks to Chris and Clay for joining me here. I wish we had more time to talk about this marvelous show, but there will be more episodes.
DC
you
show.
guys will be back. I'm just glad DC's on TV and it looks amazing. And that Fleischer costume, love that. Love it. So, as always, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back at our original main time of Monday Nights Live, Tuesday, dropping on your podcast feed next week. Later, everyone.
Ta-ta.
See you.